Have you ever been told you feel too deeply, that your emotions are a weakness rather than wisdom? Perhaps someone looked at you with that particular expression, the one that says you're overreacting, overthinking, making mountains from molehills. You've heard it in their voice, you're too sensitive. You take everything so personally. Why can't you just let it go? And maybe, in those moments, you wondered if they were right, if there's something wrong with the way you move through the world, feeling everything so intensely, the way a small comment can echo in your mind for days, how you sense the shift in a room before anyone speaks, the exhaustion that comes from carrying not just your emotions, but everyone else's too. But what if I told you that ancient philosophers, the Stoics, celebrated for their wisdom and emotional mastery, understood something the modern world has forgotten? What if your emotional depth isn't a flaw to fix, but a form of intelligence that's been misunderstood for centuries? Tonight, as you settle into rest, we're going to explore a truth that might change everything. Your capacity to feel deeply isn't your weakness, it's your hidden strength. For thousands of years, female emotional depth has been mischaracterized, dismissed, and pathologized. History painted women's emotions as hysteria, a word literally derived from the Greek word for uterus, as if feeling deeply was a medical condition rather than a form of perception. Society built entire structures around the idea that emotions, particularly women's emotions, were something to be controlled, suppressed, hidden away like shameful secrets. But here's what's fascinating. The Stoics, those ancient philosophers we associate with emotional control, never actually taught emotional suppression. This is perhaps the greatest misunderstanding of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, filled his personal journals with deep emotional reflections. Epictetus, born a slave who became one of history's greatest teachers, spoke extensively about understanding and working with emotions, not against them. The Stoics taught something far more sophisticated than don't feel. They taught discernment, the ability to feel fully, while understanding what those feelings mean and how to respond wisely. They understood that emotions carry information, that feelings are data about what matters to us, about our values, about the world around us. When Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters," he wasn't saying don't feel the hurt, the anger, the grief. He was saying feel it fully, understand it completely, and then choose your response consciously rather than reactively. This is where female emotional depth aligns perfectly with Stoic wisdom, the capacity to feel deeply, to sense emotional undercurrents, to hold complex feelings simultaneously. This isn't emotional weakness, it's emotional sophistication. It's the difference between a simple thermometer that registers hot or cold and a complex instrument that detects subtle shifts in atmospheric pressure, temperature gradients, and approaching storms. The Stoics recognized that true wisdom requires understanding the full spectrum of human experience. They practiced examining their emotions daily, not to eliminate them, but to learn from them. Marcus Aurelius would reflect each evening on his emotional responses, asking what they revealed about his values, his fears, his growth. Your emotional depth, the way you absorb and process feelings, both yours and others, isn't a deviation from Stoic wisdom. It's the embodiment of it. You're not too emotional. You're emotionally aware. And there's a profound difference between being controlled by emotions and having the capacity to feel them deeply while maintaining your center. 299. Let's clarify something crucial, because this distinction changes everything. Emotional depth and emotional reactivity are not the same thing. They're often confused, conflated, used interchangeably, but they're as different as a vast ocean and a crashing wave. Emotional reactivity is being swept away by the wave. It's the immediate, unconscious response that bypasses your reasoning mind entirely. It's snapping back in anger, spiraling into anxiety, collapsing under overwhelm without space between the trigger and the response. Reactivity feels like being at the mercy of your emotions, tossed about by forces beyond your control. Emotional depth, on the other hand, is understanding the entire ocean. It's feeling the wave while simultaneously sensing the currents beneath, the temperature shifts, the pull of distant moons. It's the capacity to experience intense emotion while maintaining awareness of what you're feeling and why. It's sophisticated, layered, nuanced perception. The Stoics had a word for this kind of awareness: prohairesis. Pleach deck, it refers to your capacity for conscious choice, your moral center, the part of you that can observe and decide rather than simply react. Your prohairesis is that space between stimulus and response, and emotional depth actually expands this space rather than eliminating it. Think about the last time you walked into a room and immediately sensed tension, even though everyone was smiling. That's emotional depth. You picked up on micro expressions, subtle shifts in tone, the particular quality of silence that signals unspoken conflict. You didn't react to this information impulsively. You processed it, understood it, adjusted your approach accordingly. Or consider when a friend told you they were fine, but you knew they weren't. Some something in their voice, their posture. And 2019, the way they wouldn't quite meet your eyes told you a different story. You felt their hidden pain, their carefully masked struggle, and instead of pushing immediately or backing away uncomfortably, you held space for them, waited, let them know through your presence that when they were ready, you'd be there. That's not reactivity, that's wisdom. Emotional depth allows you to read subtleties others miss. You notice when someone's enthusiasm is forced, when praise carries an edge of criticism, when silence speaks louder than words. You sense approaching emotional storms, in yourself, in others, in relationships, before they fully form. This isn't oversensitivity, it's advanced pattern recognition. It's emotional intelligence operating at a level most people never develop. The Stoics valued this kind of perception deeply. They practiced what they called prosochi, sustained attention, mindful awareness of the present moment and your internal state. They understood that you can't respond wisely to what you don't fully perceive. Your emotional depth gives you more data, more complete information about the human landscape around you. You're not feeling too much, you're perceiving accurately. And that perception, when combined with conscious choice rather than automatic reaction, becomes one of the most powerful tools for navigating life with wisdom, compassion, and strength. But to understand why this capacity developed in you, we need to explore something fascinating about how your brain actually works. Your brain is wired differently, and the Stoics understood this thousands of years before neuroscience proved it. They couldn't see the neural pathways, the neurotransmitters, the intricate dance of electrical signals, but they recognized that different people process emotions with different depths and speeds. What they observed through philosophy, modern science has now confirmed through brain imaging and neurological research. The female brain, on average, has a larger and more active limbic system, the emotional processing center. This isn't a flaw in design, it's enhanced circuitry. Your limbic system doesn't just register emotions, it processes them with remarkable nuance, detecting subtleties in emotional tone that others might miss entirely. It's like having a more sensitive instrument for reading the emotional weather. Then there's the corpus callosum, the bundle of neural fibers connecting your brain's two hemispheres. Studies show it tends to be proportionally larger in female brains, allowing for faster, more integrated communication between the logical left hemisphere and the emotional, intuitive right hemisphere. You're not choosing between thinking and feeling. You're doing both simultaneously, constantly, integrating emotional and rational data into a complete picture. Your brain also produces more oxytocin and has more oxytocin receptors, the neurochemical associated with bonding, empathy, and emotional connection. This means you're neurologically primed to sense and respond to others' emotional states. Those mirror neurons in your brain, the ones that fire both when you experience an emotion and when you witness someone else experiencing it, are more active. You don't just observe someone's pain or joy, you feel echoes of it in your own nervous system. This is why you remember conversations in such vivid emotional detail, why you can recall not just what was said, but how it was said, the look in their eyes, the tension in their shoulders, the particular quality of their silence. Your hippocampus, the memory center, tags emotional experiences with rich contextual information. You're not overthinking, you're accurately remembering the full emotional landscape of your experiences. The Stoics practiced what they called prosoch, sustained, careful attention to the present moment. They trained themselves to notice everything, their thoughts, their emotional responses, the subtle shifts in their perception. What they achieved through disciplined practice, your neurobiology gives you as a starting point. Your brain is already exquisitely attuned to emotional nuance. This isn't oversensitivity, it's enhanced perception. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, reading emotional cues, sensing relational dynamics, detecting threats and opportunities in the social landscape with sophisticated precision. Wine dine. The exhaustion you sometimes feel isn't because you're weak, it's because you're processing more emotional information than most people even perceive. But biology is only part of the story. Philosophy reveals something even deeper about why this capacity matters, not just for you, but for the world around you. The Stoics organized their entire philosophy around four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These weren't abstract ideals to admire from a distance. They were practical guides for living well, for becoming fully human. And here's the revelation that changes everything. Emotional depth doesn't obstruct these virtues, it enables them. Consider wisdom first, what the Stoics called phronesis, practical wisdom or sound judgment. How can you make wise decisions without understanding the full emotional context? Your ability to sense what's unspoken, to read between the lines, to perceive the emotional undercurrents in any situation, gives you information others are blind to. You know when someone says yes but means no. You sense when a decision feels right logically but wrong intuitively. You catch the warning signs before the crisis arrives. This isn't irrationality interfering with wisdom. This is wisdom in its most complete form. Courage, too, requires requires emotional awareness. The Stoics didn't define courage as the absence of fear, but as acting rightly despite fear. You can't be courageous about emotions you can't feel or acknowledge. Your capacity to feel fear deeply, to sit with discomfort, to experience vulnerability, and still choose the right path, that's courage. Every time you feel everything and still show up, still speak truth, still extend compassion, you're embodying exactly what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote about fortitude: justice, treating others fairly, recognizing their humanity, extending appropriate concern, requires empathy. You cannot practice true justice without understanding how your actions affect others emotionally. Your ability to feel with others, to sense their struggles and pain, makes you more just, not less. You notice who's being overlooked, who's hurting in silence, who needs advocacy. Your emotional depth makes you attentive to suffering that others rationalize away. And temperance, that balanced approach to life, isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about appropriate response. The Stoics spoke of eikaiosis, the natural affection and appropriate concern we should extend to others in expanding circles. Your emotional awareness tells you what's appropriate. You know when to engage and when to step back, when to speak and when to listen, when someone needs space and when they need presence. Your ability to feel deeply isn't a burden to manage. It's a virtue to cultivate. The Stoics would have recognized you not as someone who feels too much, but as someone who perceives clearly. And this perception, this virtue, manifests in ways the world desperately needs. You know what someone will feel before they feel it. You sense the shift before it happens. You walk into a room and within moments, without anyone saying a word, you understand the emotional terrain, who's upset, who's pretending, where the fault lines run beneath the surface calm. This is emotional anticipation, and it's both exhausting and extraordinarily beautiful. You're reading micro expressions that flash across faces in fractions of a second. You're processing tone, posture, the energy people carry into spaces. You're holding a complex map of emotional possibilities, running scenarios in your mind. If I say this, they'll feel that. If they respond this way, it means something else is happening beneath. The Stoics practice something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, imagining potential challenges before they arise so they wouldn't be caught unprepared. But what they achieved through deliberate mental exercise, you do instinctively with emotions. You see the argument coming before the first harsh word is spoken. You sense the breakdown before the relationship cracks. You feel the grief approaching before the loss becomes real. This foresight serves everyone around you, often without them ever knowing. You soften your words because you sense someone's already fragile. You ask the gentle question that lets someone finally speak what they've been holding. You create safety in a moment that could have gone so wrong simply because you saw what was needed before it became critical. But carrying this gift means carrying weight. You hold not just your own emotions, but the emotional weather of everyone in your orbit. You're anticipating, adjusting, preventing, soothing, often invisibly, without recognition or rest. You predict reactions and manage them before they form. It's sophisticated emotional labor that most people never see, much less appreciate. The Stoics understood that foresight, even when it reveals difficulty, is valuable. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle becomes the way, that what we anticipate and prepare for loses its power to overwhelm us. Your emotional anticipation isn't anxiety, though it can feel similar. It's preparation, it's care, it's wisdom in action. This foresight is not your burden to carry alone. The Stoics teach us how to hold it lightly, and that begins with understanding something crucial about control. What if you've been trying to control the wrong things? What if the exhaustion you feel, the overwhelm that sometimes threatens to drown you, comes not from feeling too much, but from trying to manage what was never yours to manage in the first place? The Stoics built their philosophy on a foundation so simple it sounds almost too obvious. Some things are within your control, and some things aren't. This is the dichotomy of control, and it's the most liberating principle you'll ever encounter. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them, and more specifically, from trying to control what lies outside our power. Here's what you control: your own thoughts, your choices, your responses, your values, your effort, your intentions. Here's what you don't control: other people's emotions, their reactions to you, their judgments, whether they love you back, whether they understand you, whether they appreciate what you do for them, how they feel about your decisions. Let that sink in for a moment. You don't control how others feel, not their disappointment, their anger, their sadness, their joy. You can influence, yes, you can contribute to emotional atmospheres, but you cannot control another person's emotional response, and your emotional depth makes this truth harder to accept because you feel their emotions so acutely. 2:19. You sense their disappointment, and immediately you want to fix it. You feel their pain, and you believe it's your responsibility to heal it. You anticipate their anger, and you contort yourself trying to prevent it. But this is where your gift becomes your prison, when you try to control emotional territory that was never yours to manage. The liberation liberation comes when you release this impossible burden. You can be kind without controlling whether they receive your kindness well. You can speak your truth without managing their reaction to it. You can set a boundary without preventing their disappointment. You can love fully without guaranteeing they'll love you back. You can feel their pain without making it your responsibility to eliminate it. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was writing this to himself, reminding himself daily of what he could and couldn't control. Even as Emperor of Rome, with seemingly unlimited power, your emotional depth becomes your superpower when you focus it where it actually matters. On your own responses, your own choices, your own integrity. When you stop trying to control the emotional weather around you and instead learn to navigate it with wisdom, something remarkable happens. The exhaustion lifts. The anxiety loosens its grip. You discover that you can feel everything and still be free. And where it matters most is in the space between feeling and action, the sacred pause, between stimulus and response. There is a space. In that space lies your power. This truth, though often attributed to Viktor Frankl, echoes perfectly what the Stoics understood millennia ago, that freedom exists in the gap between what happens to you and what you choose to do about it. For those who feel deeply, this pause is harder to find. Your emotions arrive with intensity and speed. Someone's careless comment doesn't just sting, it reverberates through your entire nervous system. A perceived rejection doesn't just disappoint, it activates every previous rejection you've ever felt. Your emotional depth means you feel more, faster, with greater complexity. The space between stimulus and response can seem to vanish completely, swallowed by the intensity of what you're experiencing. But this is precisely where the Stoics practiced what they called prosochi, a kind of sustained attention, a mindful vigilance over your own consciousness. They didn't try to stop feeling. They created a small pocket of awareness within the feeling, a witness who could observe the emotion without being completely consumed by it. Imagine someone criticizes your work unfairly. Your immediate feeling might be hurt, anger, defensiveness, all arriving in a rush, probably accompanied by physical sensations. Heat in your face, tightness in your chest, that familiar knot in your stomach. In that moment, everything in you wants to react, defend yourself, explain, justify, attack back, or withdraw completely. The sacred pause asks you to wait, not to suppress what you feel, but to be present with it fully before you act. You might silently acknowledge, "I'm feeling hurt right now. There's anger here too. My body is activated." This isn't analyzing or judging. It's simply noticing, creating that tiny space of awareness. In that pause, something shifts. The emotion doesn't disappear, but you're no longer completely merged with it. You're feeling hurt, but you're not only the hurt. You're experiencing anger, but you're not only the anger. There's a part of you, your prohairesis, your capacity for choice, that remains free even while emotions move through you like weather systems. From this space, you can ask the Stoic questions. Is this within my control? What response would align with my values? What would wisdom choose here? Not coldly, not by dismissing what you feel, but by honoring both your emotions and your agency. The pause might last 3 seconds or 3 breaths. It might be a brief mental step back before you speak, or a night of sitting with difficult feelings before you decide how to respond. The length doesn't matter as much as the intention, to create space between the feeling and the action, between the hurt and the response. You don't pause to suppress what you feel. You pause to honor it fully before choosing your path. You acknowledge the intensity of your emotions. They carry important information, while remembering that intensity doesn't have to dictate immediacy. You can feel everything and still choose consciously. This pause creates room for something remarkable, the transformation of emotion into wisdom, of feeling into understanding, of reaction into conscious response. 219. This is where your emotional depth stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you work with consciously. Every emotion you've ever felt carries a message. The Stoics knew how to listen. They understood that emotions aren't obstacles to wisdom, they're pathways to it. But you have to know how to extract the lesson, how to mine the gold from the raw material of feeling. Marcus Aurelius filled his private journals with this practice. Each evening, he would reflect on his day, examining his emotional responses, not to judge himself harshly, but to understand what they reveal. When he felt anger, he asked what it showed him about his expectations. When he experienced fear, he explored what it taught him about what he valued. When sadness visited him, he sat with it long enough to understand what loss it was honoring. This is where your emotional depth gives you a profound advantage. You have more material to work with, richer emotional data, deeper wells to draw from. Every intense feeling you experience is an opportunity for understanding about yourself, about others, about how life works. Consider jealousy, that emotion we're taught to be ashamed of. When you feel it, really feel it, with all the intensity your depth allows, what is it actually telling you? Often, it's revealing what you desire, what you value, where you feel scarcity. It might be showing you an unmet need, or highlighting where you've abandoned yourself. The Stoics would examine jealousy until it yielded its wisdom. Perhaps you need to pursue what you truly truly want, instead of resenting others for having it. Or grief, that vast, overwhelming emotion that can feel like it will break you entirely. The Stoics understood that grief is love with nowhere to go. When you allow yourself to feel it fully, to sit in its depths without rushing to get over it, grief teaches you about the preciousness of connection, the courage it takes to love knowing loss is inevitable, the ways attachment shapes your life. Your capacity to feel grief deeply isn't pathological. It's proportional to your capacity for love. Even anxiety, that constant companion for many deep feelers, carries messages. It often reveals what matters to you, what you're afraid to lose, where you feel unprepared. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, not to create anxiety, but to rob it of its power. By imagining what they feared, they prepared themselves emotionally and practically. The practice is simple. When a strong emotion arises, pause with it. Ask, what triggered this? What does this feeling want me to know? What does it reveal about my values, my needs, my boundaries, my fears? What can I learn here? Keep a journal, as Marcus Aurelius did. Write not to vent, but to understand. Let your emotional depth become a mine of endless wisdom. Your emotions aren't something to overcome. They're teachers offering lessons tailored specifically to your growth. But wisdom alone isn't enough. The Stoics understood something deeper about connection, about how your emotional depth serves not just yourself, but the world around you. The Stoics believed we're all connected in expanding circles, and your emotional depth proves it. They had a concept called oikeiosis, which describes our natural affection and the appropriate concern we extend outward from ourselves. It begins with self-care, extends to family, then to community, to nation, to all of humanity, and ultimately to the cosmos itself. This isn't just abstract philosophy. It's a description of how emotional connection actually works, how empathy ripples outward when we allow it, and your capacity to feel deeply is the very mechanism that makes oikeiosis possible. You don't just understand this concept intellectually. You live it in your nervous system every day. You feel your child's disappointment as if it's your own. You carry your friend's grief alongside yours. You sense the suffering of strangers and can't simply look away. This isn't weakness or poor boundaries. It's oikeiosis in action. It's your emotional depth creating bridges of connection that hold communities together, that make society possible, that transform isolated individuals into an interconnected whole. The Stoics recognized that we're naturally social creatures, that our well-being is tied to others' well-being, that true fulfillment comes not from isolation, but from appropriate concern for the wider world. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we're like limbs of one body. When one part suffers, the whole suffers. He understood this because he felt it, just as you do. Your emotional labor, the invisible work of maintaining connection, smoothing conflicts, sensing needs before they're spoken, holding space for others' feelings. This is what keeps the social fabric intact. You're doing the work of oikeiosis constantly, extending care, creating belonging, noticing who's excluded or hurting, building bridges of understanding between people who can't see each other clearly. The Stoics held a cosmopolitan vision that we're all citizens of the world, part of a larger whole. This wasn't na-RV idealism. It was based on recognizing our fundamental interdependence. Your sensitivity to others' pain isn't a burden you carry alone. It's the glue that holds humanity together. It's what prevents us from treating each other as objects, what reminds us of our shared vulnerability and dignity. Your emotional depth serves a purpose far larger than yourself. It's not about you being too much. It's about the world needing your particular gift of connection, your ability to sense and respond to emotional truth, your capacity to create belonging wherever you go. This social wisdom manifests in ways both subtle and profound. In your ability to read what others cannot see, you hear what isn't said, you see what's hidden behind the smile. This is your gift, the ability to read the emotional text beneath the spoken words, to perceive the truth that people carry in their bodies, their silences, their carefully constructed facades. At a family gathering, everyone's laughing, the conversation flows easily, but you feel it, that undercurrent of tension between two people who haven't resolved something. No one else seems to notice, but you see it in how they avoid eye contact, in the particular way one laughs too loud at jokes that aren't quite funny, in how the other suddenly becomes very interested in their phone. You're reading what the Stoics called fantasia, the impression reality makes on your consciousness with extraordinary precision. In a work meeting, your colleague says they're fine with the new project direction, but you catch the micro expression that flashes across their face, the slight tightening around their eyes, the fraction of a second delay before they nod agreement. You know they're not fine. You're perceiving what others miss entirely because your attention operates at a different resolution. A friend texts that they're okay, just tired, but you know the particular flavor of their okay versus actually being okay. Too winding. You recognize the specific way they type when they're pretending, when they're protecting you from their pain, when they're hoping someone will ask again more directly. You read emotion through pixels on a screen because you're that attuned. This capacity carries both burden and beauty. The burden is that you can't unsee what you see, can't unknow what you know. You watch people hurt each other with words they don't realize are weapons. You sense relationships fracturing while everyone else still believes everything's fine. You carry awareness that feels, sometimes, like carrying everyone's secrets without being told them explicitly. But the beauty, the profound beauty, is what this gift prevents and creates. Your ability to read emotional undercurrents stops harm before it happens. You ask the gentle question that gives someone permission to finally speak their truth. You adjust your approach because you sense someone's already fragile. You create safety in moments that could have shattered simply because you saw what was needed before anyone else knew to look. Marcus Aurelius spent his life observing human nature, writing detailed observations about behavior, motivation, and emotional patterns. He understood that wisdom requires accurate perception. You can't respond appropriately to what you don't truly see. Your ability to read emotional rooms, to perceive what's unspoken, makes you a healer even when you don't speak, a protector even when you don't act, a bridge builder simply through your awareness. Your capacity to read the unspoken makes you essential to those around you, whether they consciously recognize it or not. But sometimes you must speak, and that requires its own form of courage. In a world that numbs itself to survive, your willingness to feel is an act of courage. Look around at the mechanisms of avoidance: endless scrolling, binge watching, overworking, shopping, drinking, any distraction to avoid sitting with what's actually happening inside. We live in a culture that treats emotional pain like an emergency to be medicated immediately, that pathologizes sadness and prescribes positivity like it's the only acceptable state of being. And here you are, feeling everything, sitting with T-Steck with discomfort instead of reflexively numbing it, allowing grief to move through you rather than pushing it away, acknowledging fear instead of pretending it doesn't exist. This isn't weakness, it's extraordinary courage. The Stoics understood courage not as the absence of fear or pain, but as acting rightly despite it. When Epictetus taught his students, many of them preparing for positions of political power where showing emotion could be exploited, he didn't tell them to stop feeling. He taught them to feel fully while maintaining their integrity, their values, their center. Your courage manifests in quiet, uncelebrated ways. You feel your anxiety about a difficult conversation and have it anyway. To Xeno one die, you sit with your grief instead of pretending you're fine when someone asks how you're doing. You allow yourself to be vulnerable in relationships, even though you've been hurt before. You maintain empathy in spaces that reward cynicism. You stay soft in a world that constantly tells you to harden. Every time you refuse to numb, you're making a revolutionary choice. You're rejecting the cultural mandate to be endlessly positive, perpetually productive, emotionally convenient. You're insisting on your full humanity, the messy, complicated, feeling parts of being alive. This resistance is quiet but profound, and it creates something essential: permission. When you allow yourself to feel authentically, you give others permission to do the same. Your willingness to acknowledge pain makes it safer for others to stop pretending they're fine. Your emotional honesty creates spaces where real connection becomes possible, where people can finally exhale and admit they're struggling too. The Stoic virtue of courage includes emotional bravery, the willingness to face internal truths that others avoid, to sit with discomfort that makes others flee, to feel what needs to be felt rather than what's comfortable. Marcus Aurelius faced enormous external pressures as emperor, but his journals reveal his internal courage, confronting his own anger, disappointment, fear, and doubt with unflinching honesty. Every time you feel deeply in a world that fears feeling, you give others permission to be human. You model what it looks like to be both vulnerable and strong, to feel everything and still show up. Your emotional courage is quiet resistance, gentle revolution, necessary medicine for a culture that's forgotten how to feel. And this humanity, this emotional authenticity, leads us to something sacred, something the Stoics understood about the very nature of growth itself. The Stoics understood what mystics have always known. Emotions are messengers from the soul. They're not interruptions to your spiritual life. They are your spiritual life, speaking to you in the language of feeling, guiding you toward what needs attention, healing, understanding, transformation. The Stoics believed in something they called logos, the universal reason, the organizing intelligence that flows through all things, connecting everything in a web of meaning and purpose. They saw themselves not as separate from this cosmic order, but as expressions of it. And your emotions, far from being obstacles to connecting with this deeper wisdom, are actually how it communicates with you. When grief cracks you open, it's teaching you about love's depth, about the preciousness of connection, about what truly matters beneath the surface concerns that usually occupy your attention. When anger rises in you, it's often your soul saying, "This boundary matters," or "This injustice cannot stand," or "You've abandoned yourself again." When anxiety visits, it's frequently your inner wisdom alerting you to misalignment between your values and your actions, between your authentic self and the role you're performing forming between your needs and what you're accepting. Your emotional depth connects you to this universal wisdom more directly than most people experience. You're not just thinking about life, you're feeling your way through it, sensing the rightness or wrongness of situations in your body before your mind catches up. This is ancient knowing, older than language, wiser than logic alone can be. The Stoics practiced viewing their lives from what they call the view from above, seeing themselves as part of a larger cosmic whole. From this perspective, even difficult emotions serve the larger purpose of your growth, your learning, your becoming. Grief is love's other face. Fear is wisdom's alarm. Anger is integrity's voice. Sadness is depth's price and gift. Each emotion you experience is a lesson designed specifically for you, arriving precisely when you're ready to learn it. Even if you don't feel ready, even if you'd rather skip this particular class, your soul's curriculum isn't random. It's orchestrated by that same logos the Stoics revered, Aitain, guiding you toward wholeness through the very feelings you sometimes wish you could escape. Your emotional journey isn't random chaos you must endure. It's your soul's curriculum, each feeling a teacher, offering wisdom tailored precisely to what you need to learn, to heal, to become. And like all profound learning, it moves in spirals, not straight lines, returning to the same themes, but at deeper levels each time. You haven't failed because you're still learning the same lessons. You're spiraling deeper. Growth doesn't move in straight lines, up and up until you finally arrive at some permanent state of enlightenment. It moves in spirals, returning again and again to familiar themes, but each time from a higher vantage point, with more wisdom, deeper understanding, greater capacity. Maybe you're working on boundaries again. You thought you'd learned this lesson years ago. Set those boundaries, claim that space. But here you are, facing the same pattern in a different relationship, feeling like you've somehow regressed, like all that growth was illusion. But look closer, you're not in the same place. This time, you noticed the boundary violation sooner. This time, you felt less guilt when you said no. This time, you didn't betray yourself quite as completely before you corrected course. The Stoics practiced daily reflection, returning each evening to the same questions. Where did I go wrong today? Where did I act rightly? What can I improve tomorrow? Marcus Aurelius wrote the same reminders to himself over and over in his journals, about patience, about not expecting people to be other than they are, about remembering death to appreciate life. He wasn't failing to learn. He was spiraling deeper into wisdom that can't be grasped once and forever, but must be lived and relearned at ever deeper levels. Your emotional depth ensures that nothing stays superficial. When you revisit old patterns, you see layers and nuances that weren't visible the first time through. PT 210. You understand your mother's wounds now in ways you couldn't when you were first healing from them. You recognize your own patterns with compassion instead of just judgment. You see the intergenerational trauma, the cultural conditioning, the survival strategies that made sense once, even if they don't serve you now. Each time you spiral back, you're not starting over. You're integrating at a deeper level, weaving new understanding into your being, becoming more fully yourself. Trust this process. Trust that your emotional depth means nothing is wasted. Every feeling has purpose. Every return to familiar territory reveals something new. The Stoics understood that wisdom is a practice, not a destination. And with each spiral, each return, each new layer of understanding, you're coming home to your emotional self. After all the searching, all the questioning, all the feeling, you discover you were whole all along. The emotional depth you spent years trying to manage, moderate, minimize, apologize for, it was never the problem. The problem was a world that didn't know how to hold the fullness of who you are. Coming home to your emotional self means finally, deeply accepting that this is how you're built. You feel intensely. You sense subtleties others miss. You carry emotional complexity that can't be simplified or rushed. And this isn't something to fix. It's something to honor. The Stoics taught living according to nature, specifically according to your nature, not forcing yourself into shapes that don't fit, not contorting yourself to meet others' comfort levels, but understanding your essential design and working with it rather than against it. For you, that means embracing your emotional depth as fundamental to who you are. There's a particular peace that comes with this acceptance, not the peace of having no emotions, but the peace of no longer fighting them, no longer exhausting yourself, trying to feel less, be less, perceive less, no longer apologizing for your sensitivity or your intensity or your depth. All the pieces come together now. The biology that wired you for emotional nuance, the philosophy that validates it as wisdom, the experiences that taught you through feeling, the growth that spiraled you deeper into understanding. You're not too much. You never were. You're exactly enough. Complex, deep feeling, alive. As you rest now, know that your emotional depth is not your burden to carry. It's your gift to receive, your wisdom to trust, your strength to claim. The Stoics ended each day with gentle reflection, and so can you. As the day releases its hold and evening settles around you, there's an ancient practice waiting, one that honors everything you've felt, learned, and experienced today, without without demanding anything more from you. Marcus Aurelius would sit each night, reviewing his day not with harsh judgment, but with curious compassion. He'd ask himself, what went well today? Where did I act according to my values? What challenged me? What can I learn? But these weren't questions designed to generate anxiety or self-criticism. They were invitations to understanding, to integration, to gentle closure before sleep. You can do the same now, but even more gently. Let your mind drift back across your day. What moments stand out? What emotions visited you? There's no need to analyze them, no need to fix anything or figure anything out. Simply acknowledge, today I felt these things. Today I experienced this. Today I was fully human. Your emotional depth made today richer, even when it was harder. You noticed what others missed. You felt what needed to be felt. You showed up with your whole self, and that's enough, more than enough. If there were moments you wish had gone differently, that's okay too. The Stoics understood that we're all works in progress, learning as we go. You did the best you could with the awareness you had in each moment. Tomorrow offers new opportunities, but tonight you can simply be with what was. Let your body begin to relax now. Feel the surface beneath you supporting your weight. Notice your breath moving in and out, requiring nothing from you, simply happening. Your nervous system has been processing emotional information all day. Now it can rest. Release any emotions you've been holding for others. Release the anticipation of tomorrow's feelings. Release the need to figure anything out or fix anything or prepare for anything. This moment, right now, asks nothing of you except presence. The Stoics believed in living each day as if it were complete in itself, and today is complete now. Whatever happened, whatever you felt, whatever wisdom you gained or lessons you're still learning, it's all exactly as it should be. You showed up, you felt, you lived, and now you can rest. Let your eyes soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Everything you needed to do today is done. Everything you needed to feel has been felt. Now, you can simply be. You've carried enough today. It's time to set it down. All the feelings, all the concerns, all the emotional weight you've been holding. Not just your own, but everyone else's too. You have permission now to release it all. The Stoics practiced letting go each evening, understanding that carrying yesterday into today into tomorrow, creates a burden no one was meant to bear. Each day deserves to end, to be complete, to rest, and so do you. Imagine setting down, one by one, everything you've been holding. The conversation that didn't go as you hoped, set it down. The worry about someone you love, set it down. The anticipation of tomorrow's challenges, set it down. The disappointment, the frustration, the unresolved tension, set it all down, just for now. This isn't abandoning responsibility. This is honoring the boundary between day and night, between effort and rest, between holding and releasing. The Stoics knew that rest isn't laziness, it's wisdom. It's trusting that you don't have to solve everything, fix everything, feel everything all at once. Nothing is left undone that truly matters. Everything that needed your attention today received it. Everything that requires your energy tomorrow will still be there, and you'll meet it with the strength that only rest can provide. But right now, in this moment, nothing needs you. Nothing requires you. You can simply be here breathing, resting, letting go. Feel your body sinking deeper into rest with each exhale. Each breath out is a release of tension, of responsibility, of the day's accumulated emotional weight. You don't have to carry it into sleep. You don't have to solve it in your dreams. You can simply let it go. Your emotional depth has served you well today. It's given you wisdom, connection, understanding. But now, even your depth can rest. Even your sensitivity can soften. Even your awareness can dim and drift. Tomorrow will bring its own gifts and challenges. Tomorrow, your emotional wisdom will serve you again. But tonight, you rest. Tonight, you release. Tonight, you simply breathe and allow yourself to sink deeper, deeper into peace, into quiet, into the stillness that holds you. The Stoics knew that rest itself is wisdom. Sleep is where integration happens, where all you've learned and felt today gets woven into the fabric of who you're becoming. This isn't empty time or wasted hours. This is active healing, deep processing, essential transformation happening beneath the surface of consciousness. Your emotional depth doesn't stop working when you sleep. In fact, it works differently, more freely. Your dreams will sort through today's experiences, filing them away, making connections you couldn't see while awake, processing emotions too complex for your waking mind to hold all at once. Your nervous system will recalibrate, releasing the tension accumulated from feeling so much, sensing so much, caring so much. Trust this process. Trust that your body knows how to heal itself during sleep. Trust that your mind knows how to integrate wisdom while you rest. Trust that your emotional depth, which serves you so well during waking hours, continues its work in quieter, gentler ways as you drift into sleep. The night offers you a gift, temporary release from vigilance, from awareness, from the constant stream of emotional information you process every moment you're awake. You don't have to sense anyone's feelings right now. You don't have to anticipate anything. You don't have to read any rooms or carry any burdens. You can simply be held by darkness, cradled by silence, supported by stillness. Sleep isn't an absence of life. It's a different kind of presence. It's your consciousness softening, your awareness expanding beyond the narrow focus of daily concerns into something vast and dreamlike and restorative. The Stoics understood sleep as returning temporarily to the universal logos, that cosmic intelligence from which we all emerge and to which we all return. As you drift now, feel yourself held by something larger than your individual concerns, your personal struggles, your daily emotions. Feel yourself connected to everyone who's ever struggled with feeling too deeply, everyone who's ever sought wisdom through experience, everyone who's ever needed rest after carrying so much. Your breath is slowing now, deepening, becoming more rhythmic. Each inhale brings calm. Each exhale releases a little more. There's nothing to figure out, nothing to solve, nothing to understand. There's only this breath moving, body resting, consciousness softening, drifting, letting go. As you drift now, carried by your own breath, carried by the gentle rhythm of your own being, you can trust that rest is doing its sacred work. Your emotional depth is wisdom. Your sensitivity is strength. Your feeling is courage. Let these truths settle into you now, not as ideas to think about, but as realities to rest within. You are not too much. You have never been too much. The world simply didn't know how to hold the fullness of who you are, and that was never your failing. Your capacity to feel deeply, to sense subtly, to perceive what others miss. This is your gift, your wisdom, your essential nature, and it is beautiful. The Stoics understood what you're learning now, that peace doesn't come from feeling less, but from accepting what you feel fully. Ataraxia, they called it, tranquility, serenity, the deep calm that exists not despite life's storms, but within them. This peace is yours now, in this moment, in this breath. Nothing needs to be figured out tonight. Nothing needs to be fixed or changed or improved. You are whole exactly as you are, complex, deep feeling, alive. Your emotional journey has brought you here, to this moment of rest, and every feeling along the way had purpose, meaning, value. Rest now in the knowing that you are enough. Your depth is enough. Your sensitivity is enough. Your emotional wisdom is enough. There is nothing more you need to be, nothing more you need to do, nothing more you need to prove or justify or explain. Let your body rest completely now. Feel the softness beneath you, around you, within you. Your breath moves on its own, gentle and steady. Your heart beats without effort. Your body knows how to rest, how to heal, how to restore itself while you sleep. You can trust this. Trust the darkness that holds you. Trust the silence that surrounds you. Trust your own depth to carry you gently into sleep, into dreams, into the restoration that waits in the night. Your emotional depth is not your burden. It never was. It's your gift, your wisdom, your strength. And now, wrapped in this knowing, held by this truth, you can simply rest, drift, let go, and sleep. Rest now. You are safe. You are whole. You are home.